Let's just thank God for who we are as a people in God, because the new beginnings, we just make it do what it do. Stand to your feet all over the building. Stand to your feet all over the building. Amen. Turn with me to 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter. And I'm going to read the first half of the fourth verse. 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter, and the first half of the fourth verse. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is patient. Love is kind. Scripture as it is written. God add a blessing to the reading and the hearing of his most holy word. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord and each other. Reach out and take someone by the hand and say, neighbor, you can't be kind if you don't stay patient. Amen. Reach out to somebody else and say, friend, you're not kind because you've lost your patience. Father, let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be made acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Let your word go forth never to come back void, but accomplish the purpose for which it is sent. In the name of Christ we pray and give thanks. Let us all say together, amen. I want to use as a subject today the challenge to love those who are still growing. The challenge to love those who are still growing. There's a story of a woman, a single parent, who the new school year came, and she worked hard to be able to go out and buy a sufficient array of new school clothes for her son for the new school year. She got up each morning and had to report to work earlier than when the boy set off to go to school. And so she got home before he got home from school. And to her shock, her dismay, when the boy got home from school, that instead of him wearing one of the outfits that his mother, with hard-earned money, had bought him for the current school year, he was wearing, above all things, an old raggedy pair of jeans that he had worn out in the previous school year. And with consternation in her voice, she says, son, I spent all this money, I worked all of this overtime so that I could buy you a sufficient wardrobe for the new school year. Why in the world are you wearing those old raggedy, worn out pants? You see, Dennis, they were some jeans, they were worn out and wearing thin at the knees. They were wearing thin in the inseam and in the back pockets, and they were creeping up above his ankles because he continued to grow, and yet those of all things is what he had put on. And he said, Mama, I like them because they're comfortable. She said, comfort or not, they look hideous. I don't want you to wear those anymore. So the next day she laid out some clothes for him, though he was well into the time where he should be able to lay out his own clothes. But for the sake of making sure that she wanted him to understand and to know that he now had different options than he had had before, she laid out his clothes. She went to work. She came home from work. The boy came home from school, and lo and behold, he had put on a different shirt, but he had on the same pants. She said, boy, what part about don't wear them no more didn't you understand? They look ridiculous. He said, Mom, I like them. They're comfortable. So she took the pants and she threw them, when he was asleep, she took the pants, she threw them in the garbage can. Threw them out so he couldn't wear them no more. She laid out some more clothes. She got up and she went to work. And then she came home the next day from work. He came home from school. He had on a different shirt once again, but didn't same old pants. Apparently, sometime before he'd gone to school, he had saw his pants missing. He went looking around for them and went in the garbage can as if he had a radar for them, got them pants, pulled them out, shook them off and put them pants on and went to school. So the mother took the pants again while he was sleeping, and she rolled them up and put them in a box in the back of her closet because he knew not to go in her room. for anything, let alone looking for some old pants. Didn't think he would never think to look there, and got up, went to work, came home, and then he came home from school, and sure enough, that boy was in them pants again, as if he had called his own special counsel to go find them pants. Mother got so frustrated, fussed at the boy something terrible, so she called her mother, the boy's grandmother, explained to her the situation that is going on, and said to her, she said, Mom, I can't understand. She says, I bought this boy all these beautiful new school clothes, and all he wants to wear is those disgusting, rat nasty old pants. She said, I feel like cutting them up and burning them. And her mother said, no, don't do that, baby. And she noticed the difference between how her mother was now with her grandchild and her mother, how she was with her when she was a child. Because, you know, most parents practice on their own kids. They get it right by the time they have grandkids. And sometimes when we who are grown now, talk to our parents about our kids, we wonder if it's the same person that was raising us. Because we remember the lady that walked around with the belt around her neck saying, do we have an understanding here? But we'll tell you as long as the day is long, don't you put your hands on them, it don't take all that. Who is this person? But her mother, having the benefit of time and like fine wine, is smooth with time, and said, baby, don't do that. She said, well, what am I going to do? She says, well, if that's what he want to wear, just leave him alone for now. Don't cut him up and burn him, you just make him mad. Well, what should I do? She said, just keep feeding him. Keep feeding him. Why? She said, because if you keep feeding him, he going to keep growing. And soon enough, he won't be able to get in him if he tries. And the moral of the story is simple and plain. It's just that many of the situations, the things that you see in other people that's wrecking your last nerve, that's got you way beyond frustrated, they simply, you ain't going to be able to fuss them out, shout them out, pout them out, even pray out, that you simply, these people have to outgrow them. They're negative things. And all of our lives, some negative things that they're going to have to grow out of, and some positive things you are waiting on them to grow into. Because really the issue of life and transformation and character is really an issue of growth. The issue of growth. And while people are growing out of some negative things that have gotten on your last nerve and even at points broken your heart, and grow into some positive things that you think they should have embraced and gotten a handle on a long time ago, your challenge remains singular and the same, and that is to love them while they grow. Now that in itself is a frustrating proposition, as epitomized in the old saying that says, to live above with the saints I love, now that would be like glory. But to live below with the folks in the family I know, now that's a different story. But the reality is we don't live above with the saints we love. We live below with folk who still need to grow. To grow out of some negative things that have long since gotten on your nerves and broken your heart, and grow into some things that you think that they should have long since gotten a handle on by now, and you don't know why it's taken too long. And your challenge in the midst of dealing with these undergrown folks is to develop a love that has the capacity to love them while they're still growing. That's part of what Paul was trying to say to the Corinthian church that had growth issues. There's all kind of stuff that would make one fuss and fight and pray and pout, which wasn't doing anything, because folk really underneath all of the trauma and the drama going on in the church was that folks simply needed to grow. They needed to grow out of some negative things and grow into some positive things, which got back to the issue of love, because for those who were being frustrated by the things they haven't yet outgrown, or being frustrated by the things they haven't yet grown into, they realized that their ability to deal with people who are still growing comes down to the quality of their love. It's a love issue. So Paul plops into the middle of this discourse with the Corinthian church this hymn of love. It's a hymn from start to finish. The whole chapter is a hymn. And verses 1 through 3 of the 13th chapter is a prologue. that tells you through metaphor the basic character of love, or the primacy of love, the importance of love, of all things. Because Jesus did say in St. John 15 chapter, by this they'll know you're my disciples. Not the soaring rhetoric from your pulpit, not the beautiful blend of the harmonies when you sing, not how opulent are your facilities, not how impressive is the membership profile, not how expansive are your outreach and ministry and mission programs, but by this they'll know you're my disciples, that you love one another, that you have the capacity to love even folks who have not yet grown out of some foolishness and grown into some righteousness. And he says, if I speak with the tongues of men and angels and have not love, I am nothing. If I have the gift of prophecy and know all wisdom and knowledge and have not love, I am nothing. If I have the faith to move mountains, can say this mountain, get thee up from here, and have not love, I am nothing. If I give all my goods to feed the poor, my body to be burned, work my fingers to the bone, if I have love, I am nothing. He establishes in the first 3 verses in the prologue to this hymn, where he talks about the primacy of love. We don't all have the same gifts, but we are all called to love. And so after establishing the primacy of love, then verses 4 through 7, he gets down to the meat and the heart of this hymn when he talks about the character of love, how love behaves in the trenches of life when we're dealing with imperfect people, whose imperfections they have not yet outgrown and have not been perfected in the ways that we think they should have been perfected a long time ago. And of all the things he says about what love does, he starts off with the first sentence. He says, love is patient, comma, love is kind. Now, a sentence is a complete thought, and a paragraph is a list of connected thoughts. And in some versions, it reads as if this is 2 different sentences. Love is patient, comma, love is kind. It's actually one sentence because it's a continuation of the thought, because the latter has everything to do with the former. In fact, the latter is dependent upon the presence of the former, and the former is stated only to lead to the latter. Love, it should read, love is patient and love is kind, period. And everything else is really a reiteration of that one verse, Sister Phyllis. Love is patient and love is kind. By kind, as it is translated here in the New International Version, is actually translated off of a verb, because these are action words. It's talking about what love does. That love is useful toward another. Love always has an outward focus. It is not obsessed with self. Later on in the passage, in this chapter, Paul says, love does not push itself forward. Love and narcissism are oxymorons. Love has an outward focus. It is to be kind, is to be useful to another, or to be benevolent. In other words, to be kind is to extend a courtesy or an act of empathy toward another in a time of need, such as the Samaritan on the Jericho road, who it says that he saw the man who had been beaten and left for dead as he fell among robbers, and it says that he had compassion on him, pati and kum, to suffer with. He psychologically projected himself into the life of the man left on the road and said, if I were in his position, how would I want me to respond to him? It really is to walk in empathy, really is to fulfill the golden rule. Do unto others not as they've done unto you, but as you would have them do unto you. If that was you left for dead on the Jericho road, how would you want some passerby to respond to your need? That's what empathy is. It is simply being able to allow another's need to first register with you and then to respond to what has registered with you. To be kind is to act empathetically to someone's need, or to simply be capable of a courtesy, simply as an act of goodwill. To open a door, to wait and allow someone to come in as if to say, I see you, and not just rush along to my appointment. To say, I'm going into the kitchen, do you need anything? As opposed to, you get up and get it yourself. To be kind, to send someone a note to say, was thinking about you. Have a nice day. a courtesy to step back and allow someone to get in line in front of you. They got one or two things. You got a whole basket cart full of stuff. Go on and step in front of you. They have no entitlement. You have no obligation. It is simply to be kind, to offer someone a glass of water for whom they would say to you, that's so kind of you. He said, love is patient and kind. Love is kind. But we find this truth in life. Kindness draws up when patience runs out. That's why it says love is patient and kind, because you will never get to kindness. You will not sustain kindness. You will not recover kindness if you don't first protect patience. And what's translated here in English as patience, in King James it says long suffering, which pushes more toward the actual meaning of the Greek verb that is used there when it says long suffering, because what it's talking about here, that love has the ability to forbear, to endure. Suffering, by definition, my brothers and sisters, is when one is in a painful, god-awful, heartbreaking, gut-wrenching situation that is also protracted in nature. Part of the definition of suffering is that it is something awful that has gone on long, way too long. The children of Israel suffered for 100 years in Egyptian bondage. African American people suffered through 244 years of chattel slavery and suffered through another 100 years of legal segregation. The nation has suffered for 200 or 2.5 years under this current fool occupant in the White House. Some of you have suffered in abusive relationships. There are people suffering in Honduras and Nicaragua and who are willing to walk 3,000 miles to knock on the door here and to see if we still mean what we inscripted on the Statue of Liberty: gives your poor, you're tired, your huddled masses, those longing to breathe free. People are suffering. Suffering, by definition, is pain and heartache and anguish that has gone on for a long period of time. And Paul says here that love is patient and kind. Kindness dries up when patience runs out. The whole point of preserving patience is that we have the capacity then to still be kind. To be kind. So what he's really saying here is that love is the capacity to still be useful to act benevolent toward, to extend courtesy toward others, even when I am not only suffering, but have been suffering for way too long. In fact, even further, catch this, that love has the capacity to be useful toward, to benevolent toward, to be kind, even when I am suffering, even more so, even to be kind toward the very person's situation that is the cause of my suffering. If you're dealing with people who have not yet grown out of some negative stuff that's getting on your last nerve or breaking your heart, and have not yet grown into some virtues that you think they should have been able to embrace and gotten handled on a long time ago, you have to have, if you're going to love them, if you're going to love people who need to grow, you have to have the capacity to be useful to folks who are breaking your heart and been breaking it for a while. Touch your neighbor and say, you need this sermon bad. Now, Brother Hampton, you saying, Reverend, I can read your mind right now. You saying, Reverend, tell me, please, how in the world, in practical steps, how am I going to develop the capacity to love in this way? How am I going to get to a love that is patient so I can stay kind to folks who've been on my last nerve? I'm so glad you asked. And I'm glad my hype buddy is back this week, too. The first step toward developing the capacity to love folk who are still growing is that you have to remember that any legitimate, viable growth process involves time. Time. Character can never be microwaved. In a microwave world, in a world of instant everything, we want everything now. We want it yesterday. And growth is a process that involves time. Now, time alone is not transformative. Time alone does not solve any problems. But the ingredients that are involved in growth necessarily always include time. Always includes time. I was listening the other day to my favorite song. I think it's the most beautiful song that has ever been penned. And I think it was the most beautiful and most elegant version of the most beautiful song that's ever been penned. The most beautiful song, obviously, you all know and agree with me, is Unchained Melody. And the most elegant, most beautiful version is George Benson's version of Unchained Melody, because of the way it soars and grows and crescendos. But I like that part about when it says, time goes by so slowly. And time can do so much. Are you still mine? Godspeed your love to me. And I said, oh, there it is right there. Did you catch it? Time goes by so slowly. Godspeed your love to me. That's the tension that we live in life. Time goes by so slowly, but Godspeed your love to me. Our desire, our aspiration is that the love and whatever it else that we long for, that we yearn for, that we dream for, that we've been praying for and hoping for, we want God to speed it to us. But it's going by so slowly. It's going by so slow. We want God to speed it to us. I remember several years ago, many years ago, a couple decades ago now, when I was a teenager, Bethlehem Baptist Church in Hilltop in Tacoma, center of the known world, 1725 South I Street. Beverly, you might have been there back. That's when our church meetings were worthy of pay-per-view on HBO. And there was some contention in the meeting, and the lady stood up and told pastor at the time, Reverend Floyd D. Bullock, she made a statement and she demanded an answer. She said, I want an answer. And he said, well, very calmly, he said, I can give you a quick answer, a good answer, or a quick answer. Which do you want? She said, I want an answer good and quick. And that's the way we are when we see some foolishness in our children. When we know we didn't teach it to them. We see stuff growing up in there that we didn't teach them. We want this mess over with good and quick. That's the way pastors are. We see contention and problems in the congregation. We want to resolve good and quick. That's what we want when we see issues in our relationship. We want that stuff over with good and quick. That's what we are when we see our desire to grow in our professional lives. We want our dreams fulfilled good and quick. But anything that's a process of growth requires time. We want God to speed it to us. Our dreams open the door that no one can close. Move the mountains in my life. Answer my prayers, God, good and quick. And why is it going by so slowly? That's really the story behind the story of the prodigal son. Really the certain man that had two sons. But we refer to it as a prodigal son, that younger brother who took his portion and went into a far country and squandered it on riotous living. And I heard an old preacher say about that passage in a colloquial way. He said, an old man prodigal, he said it was a long time between when that boy left and when he came to himself and came home. He said it was a long time. And he said during that period of time, the old man prodigal sent all his friends to try and make sense with that boy. He said he sent his friend Guilt. Guilt went down there and talked to the boy. And Guilt said to him, boy, you breaking your mom and your daddy's heart. You're killing them. They can't even sleep at night worrying about you. And the boy told Guilt, he said, I didn't ask to be born. So Guilt went back home, told man prodigal, he said, couldn't get through to him. So then the old man prodigal, he sent his friend Shame. Shame went down there and told him, he said, you know, it's a shame you acting like this. You come from such a good home, now you run around with these hoodlums like you don't know better. That's a sin and a shame. And the boy told Shame, stay out my business. You ain't perfect. So Shame went home and told old man prodigal, he said, couldn't get through to him. So then he sent his friend Fear. Fear went down there and said, yeah, keep it up. You're going to get yourself killed. And he told Fear, he said, I can handle my business. So Fear went home and told him he wouldn't listen to him. So when all else failed, he sent his dearest and longest lasting friend, he sent his friend Time. He sent Time down there to talk to him. Seemed like Time took forever to get down to there to that boy. Time took his time going down there. The boy saw him from afar off when he was coming, and he said, Time, I see you over there. I know my daddy sent you. He sent fear, guilt, and shame, and I sent them all back home. What you gonna try and say to me? And Time said to him, nothing. Time said, I'm gonna just go over here and sit on the fence, and I'm gonna just wait on you. And then it says, in time, he came to himself. And then he came home to his father, saying, Father, I've sinned against heaven and earth against thee. He came home in time. The only person who brought him home, not fear, not guilt, by shame. The only one who brought him home was time. Touch your neighbor and say, take time to grow. You may want God to speed it to you. You may want your joy now. You may want your ship to come in now. You may want this pain off your heartache now. You may want this thing resolved now. You may want them to grow up now. But it takes time. Time. If you're going to deal with people and love people who need to grow out of some negative things and grow into some positive things, you need to know up front it's going to take time. He may not come when you want him, but he will step in right on time. Time. But not only does it take time, my brothers and sisters, if we're going to deal with people who still need to outgrow some negative things and grow into some positive things, one of the things that will keep you patient so that you can stay kind to those who are the source of your heartache while they're growing is you have to be intentional about recounting any and all positive steps and strides that have already been made toward the outcomes that you seek. See, let me talk to this side of the room because they're talking back to me. See, Terry, we have this strange capacity. It's on the hard drive of our humanity. I don't know why. I'm asking the Lord when we get to heaven. We have this capacity to get so despondent and so distraught for the sake of what has not happened yet, that if we don't watch ourselves, we can become forgetful of, indifferent to, unappreciative of, or trivialize what has already happened, occurred, and been manifested. Did you catch that? Let me talk to y'all. Maybe you'll talk back to me. Sometimes we get so distraught, so despondent, so frustrated for the sake of what has not happened yet, that we become forgetful of, indifferent to, or trivialize what has already occurred. And therefore our patience runs out. Next thing we're snapping at people. We can't be kind because we've lost our patience, because we have forgotten what God has already brought us through. There's a story of a mother who's single parent, and she made the sacrifices, raised this boy, sent him off to school, and she was so happy he was going to be graduating a week from now, and she had already bought her plane ticket to fly in town for the graduation. And she had bought her graduation outfit because she was going to be geared up appropriate for the fact that her baby was going to be crossing that stage. And she had planned a little reception for her son with all her relatives in the area who were going to come up and share in this celebrative moment where her baby was going to cross that stage and shake the president's hand, get that diploma, turn that tassel to the side, and she was going to celebrate how good a parent she had been to raise that boy all by herself. And lo and behold, if the devil was a liar, a week before she was supposed to leave and get on that plane, that boy called home and said, Mama, I'm not going to be graduating this year. I'm going to need to go another semester. She said, who? What? You're not going to what? I done bought my ticket. I done bought my, what do you mean you're not going to be graduating? Well, Mama, see, I had a little trouble and I just need an extra semester. And it'd be, what you need an extra semester for? That extra semester is more money. We didn't pay for all this money. You must be down there partying. You must ain't focusing. You're not handling your business. And she went in on him real hard and slammed the boy and slammed down the phone. And the boy called his grandmama, who had practiced on her kids and now got it right. Grandparent called his grandmama and told her grandmama what had happened. The grandmama called the mama and said to a girl, she said, listen, you need to pick up that phone and call back that boy and encourage him. No, he's not even graduating on time. He's not doing what he was supposed to do. She says, have you forgotten about the fact that because of things that happened in your life, not his, that boy was born with infant alcohol fetal syndrome? and that they said early in his life that he would never be able to learn beyond the 3rd grade level. But by the grace of God, he took him beyond the 3rd grade level to the 4th grade level, beyond the 4th grade level to the 5th grade level, beyond the 5th grade level to the 6th grade level, beyond the 6th grade level to the 7th grade level, beyond the 7th grade level to the 8th grade level, beyond the 8th grade level to the 9th grade level, beyond the 9th grade level to the 10th grade level, beyond the 10th grade level to the 11th grade level, beyond the 11th grade level to the 12th grade level, and graduated from high school with honors, with grades high enough to be accepted into and matriculate into the college of his choice, beyond his freshman year to his sophomore year, beyond his sophomore year into his selected degree program, from his sophomore year to his junior year, beyond the junior year to the senior year, and now the boy only needs one more semester to finish and get his degree. Seemed to me that the same God who brought him all this way can get him across the finish line. If the boy needs one more semester, what is that in the will of God? Sometimes we get so frustrated over what has not yet happened, we forget all of the mountains he's brought you over, all of the valleys he's brought you through, all of the doors he's already opened that no one could shut, all of the barriers he's shut so that no enemy can take you down, all of the bills he's already paid, all of the diseases he's already healed, all of the heartbreaks he's already defended you from, all of the sick beds he's already lifted you from. Don't get so caught up in what has yet to happen that you forget the way that God has already brought you. When my soul looks back in awesome wonder, I know who brought me over. If you're going to continue to love folk who are still growing out of some negative things and growing into some positive things, you have to have the ability to thank God for every little step headed in the right direction. Well, thirdly, if y'all going to continue to be able to love folk who still got some growing to do to outgrow some negative things that's getting on your last nerve and breaking your heart, and growing into some virtues that you think, according to the way your mind is, that they should have embraced already, if you're going to stay patient enough to continue to be kind and be useful to them, then you have to, my brothers and my sisters, you have to be humble. And I mean humble in this regard. You have to be humble enough to acknowledge and admit all the points in your own life where others might have the right to say to you, by now. By now, you should be able to control your temper. By now, you should be able to bridle that tongue of yours that you weaponize whenever anybody gets on your last nerve. By now, you should be able to get up and get to work on time. By now, you should have been promoted to supervisor if you didn't take so many sick days on Mondays and on Fridays. By now, you should have more money in the bank. By now, you should have a better credit score. By now, you should have been able to buy your own house. By now, you should be able to clean your own house on the regular. By now, you should stop getting tickets all the time, stop getting in an accident every year, and by now, you shouldn't be in that high-risk insurance pool. By now, you shouldn't be still squabbling with your baby daddy or your regular daddy all the time like you don't know how to get along with folks. By now, you should be coming to church regularly. By now, when you come to church, you should get there before the sermon starts. By now, you should be paying your tithes and offering. By now, you should be a ministry leader. By now, you should be teaching Bible study instead of always taking Bible study, every learning, but never doing it. By now, your feet shouldn't look so bad when you wore sandals or open-toed shoes. You should have the things scraped, soaked, painted, and clipped long time ago. By now. Sometimes, if you're going to be patient with folk who are still growing, you need to be honest about all the points in your own life where others have right legitimately say to you, by now. By now, you should know how to fast and pray without calling everybody, will you pray with me? You need to learn how to pray for your doggone self. Because if God ain't going to listen to you, he ain't going to listen to no one else. But ultimately, if you're going to develop the love that has the capacity to stay patient and take the commodity of patience and translate it into kindness so you can continue to be useful to folk who are growing, still growing out of some things that's breaking your heart or getting on your last nerves, and still growing into some things that you think they should have had a long time ago, then you have to remember at the end of the day that they are, when all is said and done, they are a God thing. Somebody say a God thing. I was, 2 weeks ago, I preached for my best friend, Reverend Anthony L. Trufant, pastor of the historic Emmanuel Baptist Church in Brooklyn, New York. And we went to a little restaurant around the corner from where the church is on Lafayette Avenue in Brooklyn. And my nephew, Ramon, who was but 15 years younger than me, and he is now no, literally, he's only 15 years younger than me. And he is, I'm 27, he's 12. He's 15 years younger than me. For those of you who's trying to sit here right now and count, people are sitting up here counting while I'm preaching. The devil is a liar. By now, you should know how to stay focused. While I was in town, I made a point of spending some time with Ramon when services were over. He joined us for dinner, and but his church, he's the minister of music at the historic Abyssinia Baptist Church in Harlem. It was the church formerly pastored by Adam Clayton Powell Senior, and then Adam Clayton Powell Jr., and then Samuel DeWitt Proctor. It was a church that was built by freedmen in the early parts of the 19th century before slavery had even ended. It is one of the top 3 flagship churches in the country and one of the top 3 music ministries in African American churches. There was my nephew, graduate of Morehouse College with honors, accompanist for the Glee Club, graduate of Morgan State, one of the last student protege to work with Dr. Carter, who went that historic rendition of Beams of Heaven, 7-part harmony. And there Ramon is. He presiding over a $2.5 million music budget, equivalent to our entire church budget. And I thought to myself, when he came in, I said, "You are a God thing." He looked at me and says, "What you been drinking?" And I hadn't been drinking. On that occasion, I had not had communion. But as he came in there, I was sitting there thinking that here was a boy born to 2 teenage parents, a mama who abandoned him, a father who's been in and out of the criminal justice system and seemed like his entire adult life, bounced back and forth between the homes of his maternal grandparents, landed with Shelley in his late teens, got him through college and so forth, and in spite of all of the factors that sociologists would have called him at so different levels, at risk. And then there he is, the minister of music at the historic Abyssinian Baptist Church. Somebody sit down and mathematically calculate for me, what are the odds that that life born in those circumstances would have amounted to becoming the minister of music at the Abyssinia Baptist Church? I said, you are a God thing. And when I was a student intern at the Oaka Residential Center in Rush, New York, where I did my internship, when I was a student at the Colgate Rochester Divinity School working on my master's divinity degree, we had kids, young boys who were adjudicated from the boroughs of New York, Brooklyn, Harlem, and Bronx, and Staten Island, and Manhattan, and Chaplain Charles Grimm would say to those boys who came from some of the most horrific human circumstances, and I never will forget, as he would intone passionately, he would say, I don't care what circumstances you were born into and what communities you come from or what anyone has ever said to you. He says, or anything that's happened to you along the way, he said, the only evidence you will ever need that your life is by divine design is that you are here. He said, because while people can make a mistake, only God can make a life. And your parents may have been ships passing in the night. It does not matter. Their sins are not transferable to you. And through their mess, God made a miracle, because only God can make a life. And if God chose to make you, that meant God had a plan for you. And the work that he has begun in you, he is able to complete it. You are a God thing. My brothers and sisters, that's why God used to say to Israel, whenever it faced a challenging moment, before he gave them their instruction, he would say to them, I am the Lord thy God that brought you out of the land of Egypt and out of the household of bondage. Now Moses, stretch out this rod and them waters are going to open up. I didn't bring you this far to let you drown. You are a God thing. When they got into the wilderness and there wasn't no bread, they was looking around for bread. He said, don't look around, look up. I'm going to bring wonder bread from the sky. I am the Lord thy God that brought you out of the land of Egypt and out of the household of bondage. I didn't pick you up, not only let you drown, but to let you starve out here in the wilderness. When they need water to wash down the bread, the Lord said, look at that rock. They said, why, Lord? He said, because I'm going to bring water out of the rock. I am the Lord thy God that brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the household of bondage. You ain't going to drown in no Red Sea. You ain't going to go hungry in no desert place. And you ain't going to die of thirst. If there ain't no holes, I'll just bring water from a rock. I am the Lord thy God. When they got to the Jordan and the river and the current was swift and the tide was high and there was no bridge and no boat, he told Joshua, as I was with Moses, so shall I be with thee. You be strong and of a good courage. Why? Because I am the Lord thy God that brought you out of the land of Egypt and out of the household of bondage. And if I can open up the Red Sea, I can tiptoe through this little river and pull back the waters like a curtain. I come to tell you, new beginnings, we are a God thing. Folks said we would never make it out of a cafeteria, but we serve a God that I am the Lord thy God that put you in that cafeteria and use that cafeteria to forge your faith, to mingle your tears, to strengthen your legs, to deepen your roots, to heighten your praise, to extend your service. And if I put you in a cafeteria, I can bring you out of cafeteria. You are a God thing. That's why you ain't no Braxton thing. You ain't no Jones thing. You're not a Sam Townsend thing. You're a God thing. And if I made it, I can grow it. I can protect it. I can keep it, because I can open doors that no one can shut, and I'll shut doors that no one can open. And in the end, the work that I have begun in you, I am able to complete it. Have I got a witness? Touch two people right now and say, friend, you are a God thing. Don't you worry about the bills. You are a God thing. Don't you worry about no broken heart. You are a God thing. Don't you worry who's in the White House. You are a God thing. Don't you worry about no racism, no sexism, no homophobia. God can do more for you than the world can do against you. You are a God thing. Have I got a witness? See, when you're dealing with people who still need to outgrow some negative things and grow into some positive things, you got to have a farmer's faith. What you talking about, a farmer's faith? A farmer realizes that when you have good seed and you put it in good soil, that seed, you got to put it in that soil and it's got to be buried. And then you got to wait a little while, because that seed has to mix with soil, sun, and water. And then it's got to die. They call that germination. It's got to break open. And then it's got to mix with all the elements and the dynamic processes beneath the surface that are beyond what your eye can see. See, even when you can't see it, you got to believe it, because God is working in ways that your eyes can't see. Behind the dim and shadows standeth God within the shadows, keeping watch upon his own. And then it's going to send roots down to underground streams, and then it's going to send fruit up. By the time you send fruit up, God long been at work. By the time you see the fruit of it, God been working all along. By the time they act like some sense, God been working all along. By the time they get clean and sober, God working all along. By the time they stop running the streets, God been working all along. By the time God heals the impasse, God been working all along. By the time your ship comes in, God been guiding that ship all along. By the time your prayer is answered, God been working all along. Have I got a witness? You got to have a farmer's faith. Take that seed, plant it, bury it, and let time perform its perfect work, because the God who's begun a work in you is able to complete it. Have I got a witness? In fact, speaking of seeds, there was a seed that they took down from the cross and buried it one Friday. Have I got a witness? Oh, but come Sunday morning, that seed had gone down into hell, took the keys from death, hell, and the grave, set the captives free, got up on Sunday morning and said, I got all power in heaven and earth in my
my hand. Have I got a witness? He may not come when you want him, but he will step in right on time. Touch 2-3 people and say, that time work things out. Come on, touch somebody else and say, let time work things out. There's some problems. That time has to work things out. Have I got a witness? There's some problems in the family. That time has to work it out. There's some situations in your home. That time has to work things out. There's some foolishness you've seen in your children. Time has to work things out. But to God, 1,000 years is but a day, and a day is as 1,000 years. And whenever God steps in and fixes it, it's the right time. God's time is always the right time. But in the meantime, I need to develop the patience that will keep me kind. When you're working on my last nerve, I need the patience that'll keep me supportive. When you done broke my heart again and again and again, I need to work on the patience that'll keep me loving you when you returning hate for my love. I need to work on the patience that'll keep me believing in you when you don't believe in your doggone self. Have I got a witness? Time will work it out. Touch your neighbor one more time and say, give it time for God to work it out. Now if you believe it, just open your mouth and say yeah. I said say yeah. Say yeah. Say yeah. If you go to Rome and go to St. Peter's Basilica, as you go in there, there's a statue made to St. Peter. It was made a couple of centuries ago, and Christian pilgrims from all over the world, and to the millions each year, as an act of faith, they come by, and Peter's standing there in the statue with his right leg, right foot extended forward. And saints come along and touch it as they go in and go out of St. Peter's Basilica. Ironically, the left foot that is positioned to the rear, it has maintained its original granular type of texture. But the front foot that has been touched countless times over the centuries by the saints, one touch at a time, has become concave, smooth. There are some things, situations, that God smooths out, one touch at a time, over time. And just because somebody you love or care about hadn't changed in the way that you think, or situation hasn't been resolved yet, somebody say yet. You need a yet grace. God is still touching it. God is still touching it. And God can smooth it out in God's own time. If you can stay patient. And if you stay patient, you can stay kind. And still have the capacity to love folks whose real need is not for more criticism, not for abandonment, not for ridicule, but they simply need your support and encouragement, even while they may be the source of your grief and pain. If you ask God for the capacity of love that is patient, then you can be kind and be part of the way that God touches it and smooths it out. I don't know who I'm talking to this morning. I don't know who was ready to quit. I don't know who was ready to throw their hands up in the air. I don't know who was ready to give up on somebody. But everything you've become that others admire, you didn't get it overnight. Somebody had a love that was patient, enough for you to grow into. And now you've got to ask God for that same grace to be able to love patiently. Because if you maintain your patience, you can develop the capacity to be kind. We're standing to our feet all over the building. The doors of the church is open. Somebody's here today. Your position, your place is down here with me. You've never accepted Christ in the pardon of your sins. You've been putting it off. You're afraid to walk the aisle. You think you need to get things better together in your life. You don't come when you get it together. You come to get it together. If you're here today and you know you need to get it together, come on down here. If you're here today, you've never accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, never been baptized in His name, aren't sure about your eternal salvation, come on down here. I'm waiting on you. Today is your day. If you've accepted Christ, you've been baptized, you've been running in your Christian experience, but you don't have a church home, you need to come down here today to become a part of the body of Christ. Whosoever will. Whosoever will. If God is calling you today, give God a yes. Whosoever will. As the choir begins to sing, the invitation now is yours. If you're here, I invite you to come. God is able to do.
God is able to do
What He said.
just what He said He would do.
He's going to fulfill.
He's
Whosoever
gonna
will.
fulfill.
I know you're here. The question is, will you come?
Promise to you.
Don't give up on God.
Don't give up on God.
God won't give up on
'Cause He
you.
won't give up on you. He's able.
How many of you really believe that? That God is able to do?
He's able.
Hold on. I want all y'all to do right now, close your eyes, and with the eyes of your mind, look at the faces of people you've grown sick of. Look at the faces of people you don't even want to talk to no more, because you don't believe a word that come out their mouth. Look at the people that you used to support, but you can't stand to see them no more. Look at the people that you've run out of patience with. And ask yourself this question. Do you believe that God has a role for you in their growth? If the answer to that question is yes, right now, stop complaining about them and ask God to give you the capacity to love more patiently so that you can be part of how God touches them and smooths things out. So we're going to sing this song again, and I want you to sing it with those persons in mind and your relationship to them, because that's really what God is getting at. For us to be able to love. Because if you have the power to move mountains or know all mysteries or give all your money to the poor, if you don't have love that's patient and kind, you ain't got nothing. So we're going to sing this again with them in mind. And if that ministers to you, you know you need to be down there. I want you to come on down here and meet me at this altar. Amen? Come on, everybody. God is able.
God is able